What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. There is a new head coach for the New England Patriots. He was unveiled on Thursday by owner Robert Kraft. Mayo met with the media. Phil Perry is alongside to join me. We do this podcast for Patriots football fans. We've already well established, especially for people who listen to this podcast, how intelligent and charismatic Jerod Mayo is, his incredible work ethic, and his football acumen. But if you're a football fan, that press conference and unveiling was short on details as to how the football team will proceed. Not a lot of meat on the bone to chew on as to direction. Is that just, hey, this is pomp and circumstance today. This is not talking about the future. Or if you were a fan or even a media member who likes the football product, would you be a little uneasy as to the direction right now?
I think it's probably both. You could probably acknowledge that this is Coronation Day.
Yep.
You know, this is Jerod's day, and this is the day where you make this massive transition, and you do set a tone. You know, I wouldn't say that nothing was accomplished today. What was accomplished today was you're going to have a very different communicator in the head coaching role. You're going to have a very different tone. He's used the word vibe in the football offices at One Patriot Place, because of the guy who's leading the charge. Very, very clear, two different personalities.
And I think that might as well throw to some of that noise right now from Jerod, where he talks about the vibe, talks about the culture, and talks about himself relative to Bill Belichick.
Well, first of all, I would say just the energy, right? The passion, the leaders on the offensive side of the ball. I think you have to get that stuff in place. And honestly, you know, as the season starts to roll. Well, this season, when it ends, we start in the weight room. I think the weight room is one of the most important areas in the building to really evaluate the people you have on your team. And one thing we don't want to do is have people who are complainers or finger pointing or things like that. And the best teams I've really been a part of have been teams that, whether I'm talking about high school, college, or the NFL, teams that are not led by the players, but things are enforced by the players. We have a good foundation. And my thing here over the next few weeks is to rebuild some relationships, knock down silos, and collaborate. That's what I'm focused on.
So Bill Belichick was a very real presence at the press conference today, Tom, both in acknowledging that on the one hand, he wanted to be different from Bill. He does not want to be Bill Belichick. Made that very clear. He wants to rebuild relationships, break down some of the walls or the silos that are in place there, which is implying that those things existed or they existed in a manner that Jerod didn't necessarily like previously under Bill Belichick. He also, though, Tommy, complimented Bill, and he talked about how hard work works. And, you know, smart, tough, dependable is sort of what he's seeking in his football team. Those are Bill Belichick ideals. So Belichick was represented on both ends of the spectrum at today's press conference, I thought.
It is going to be impossible in 2024 to differentiate things that come out of Jerod Mayo's mouth, whether they are expressly directed at Bill Belichick or not, from being differentiators from the way Bill Belichick did things. He was an enigmatic entity here, and it worked very well. And even if plenty of fans and most of the media recoiled at the lack of openness and directness throughout his period of time, you're going to miss it in that it's not there. You'll recognize the absence of it. It's also going to be hard to differentiate between Jerod Mayo when he's saying, these are the things I'm about, and not say, well, are those the things that he's about relative to Jerod? Or is he underscoring those things because they're not the way Bill Belichick did them? I think that he has to be attuned to that. Whether or not he gives a crap, I don't know. But here was Jerod answering a question that I posed about succeeding Bill Belichick.
What's the difficulty of replacing the greatest coach of all time and filling those shoes and, you know, honoring and keeping the DNA that he infused and altering it in the ways that you see fit?
Yeah, you know, this organization has had a lot of success over the years for a long time. And there have been many teams that, you know, they have one good year and then they're out for 3 years. One thing I learned from coaches and from Thunder is about just surrounding yourself with good people, right? Surrounding yourself with good people. Now, as far as our staff and things like that, We're going to be good. We're going to be a lot better. Now, Bill always says this, managing expectations. For me, I'm not trying to be Bill. I'm not trying to be Bill. I think that Bill is his own man. If you can't tell by now, I'm a little bit different even up here. But what I will say is, you know, the more I think about like the lessons that I've taken from Bill, hard work works, right? Hard work works, and that's what we're all about.
So it was interesting also at another juncture, Jerod said, you know, I learned a lot from Bill as a coach and as a colleague. Did not mention friend or mentor or anything like that. And I think that in the past they might have. I don't know right now how solid the relationship is. I talked to Steve Burton from WBZ, and he did a one-on-one as you did, Phil, which we will hear at the end of this program. And he asked Jerod about how things left with Bill. And he said, well, we didn't hug. So I think having the successor in the building put a strain on their relationship, probably the same way it put a strain on the relationship of Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick for a long time. And when Bill Belichick wanted to come to the Patriots during the 1996 season, when he could smell that Parcells was about to light out for the Jets, there were conversations between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick about ascending then. There were likely conversations in 2000 before Bill Belichick wrote on a napkin that he was resigning as head coach of the Jets with Robert Kraft. This stuff goes on. So I'm not surprised if there's animosity from Bill toward Jerod, even if Jerod did or did not behave in the same, use it again, Machiavellian way that Bill has been known to in the past. All that said, the absence of Bill Belichick here, and you mentioned he was very present here, you know, Phil, I'm meandering in my speech, and I just looked at my notes, and I wanted to say this. This firing came with a lot of feelings attached, even if you thought it was time. You just had something excised from your life that was a constant for 24 years. Now that those people have gone through the feelings and processed them a little bit, they want to see football results from the football team and hear football plans from the football team. So I don't think there's going to be a massive honeymoon period. I'm not saying Jerod has to get to the playoffs with the Patriots this year. I don't even know if he needs to get 7 wins. Bill got 5. They got worse in his first year as head coach. But an air of knowing what the course is and how you're going to chart it is absolutely fundamental. And I know it's January 16th, but we're not seeing signals of it.
You're right. And so if I'm a fan, I'm watching that and I'm concerned about anything. That's what it is. It's what is the direction? What is, even if you want to use buzzwords there, Tom, in terms of the product on the field, I'm not sure we got much closer to understanding how the Patriots under Jerod Mayo will be different, whether it's the direction on the offense, whether it's direction in the front office, who are making the decisions there. Now, the one bit of ball movement that we saw today, in my opinion,
football,
you're moving the ball down the field.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know what you meant.
It's a football podcast, Tom. Don't give me those eyes if you're watching on YouTube. Don't give me those eyes. Lower those.
Don't say ball movement. Go ahead. The one place where you heard some progress.
Aperture. The progress was Robert Kraft answering Mike Reese's first question at the press conference by saying, we want to evaluate the people we have in the building when it comes to personnel. But when it comes time to make decisions, we will appoint someone.
Bam! Let's run that sound. Bam!
We've never drafted, in my 30 years of ownership, we've never been drafting as low as we're drafting. So we're counting on our internal people, whom we're still learning and evaluating. So we're going to let that evolve and develop. And before the key decisions have to be made, we will appoint someone. And at the same time, we'll probably start doing interviews and looking at people from the outside.
Tom, that tells me that at least someone's going to be appointed. I think some of us were wondering, is this going to be a triangle of authority? That is an indication of there is going to be one person who has final say. Now, it might be Jerod Mayo. Maybe it's Elliot Wolf. Maybe it's Matt Groh. Maybe it's somebody from the outside. Although if they want to do that, they got to start working quickly because free agency is coming around the corner here before you know it. But there is at least going to be a person who makes the call, Tom. And I think there were people who were wondering if they would even get that far in terms of their front office structure.
And people also wondering in the wake of Seth Wickersham's article on ESPN, whether or not ownership would be significantly involved in football operations. And it was, incumbent on us to ask Robert Kraft, hey, you keep saying how much you love the team. It's out there that Belichick had a hair across his ass because he felt like you guys were meddling with his culture. Are you guys going to Bigfoot this operation at all? Here's the question that I posed to Robert Kraft at the end of the press conference and Robert's answer.
You talked about your passion for the football team. How involved will you and ownership be in football decision-making and operations? Say you want a quarterback at 3 and they say, no, we're not doing that, we're trading down. What role would you guys have in making your preferences known and acted upon?
Well, it'll be the same input that we've had for the last 3 decades. We try to hire the best people we can find and let them do their job and hold them accountable. And if you get involved and tell them what to do or try to influence them, you can't hold them responsible and have them accountable. So it'll be within the people's discretion who are the decision makers to do it. And if we've hired the wrong people, then we'll have to make a change. But we're going to try to enjoy it as fans. The only area that we have really weighed in is when it comes to bringing in people that we might think are not the right character to be here, and they have done things in their past. That's the only time we've really weighed in.
I've been around here long enough, so even if fans hear it, they're going to go, all right. I just don't think they're going to do it. I do think that Robert Kraft would like to know more than he has in the past what's going on with decisions and how they were arrived at once in a while. He's not overruling anything. But I was told last week, they didn't know what they were doing at 15 in 2021. I mean, they knew that there was a chance that they were taking Mac Jones, but 2 minutes before the pick was made, they're like, what are we doing? What are we going to do? So it's an urban myth that Robert Kraft was standing with a stopwatch in 1998 before they drafted Bucky Jones. And it ain't never going to die because Bill Parcells helped to birth that thing. So let me lob it back to you. You buying Robert Kraft saying I ain't getting involved?
I do. And I think
there's a difference between support and involvement, though. And that's the thing, right? I mean,
sure. And if you're an owner and you're voicing your support or
call this guy, he knows. Is that involvement?
It is,
because that's going to happen.
If he, though, Tom, that would be a departure from what he said would happen. What he made it sound like was we'll be as involved as we have been for the last 30 years, which is not much. So if they're going to handle it like it's a Bill Belichick run football operation, that's not going to happen. But can they accurately predict how they're going to act in the moment when Bill Belichick's not in that seat? And Jerod Mayo, with whom they have a much better relationship, is. I think that's a fair question.
We've talked about this a lot. Jerod Mayo doesn't come in with the Rolodex that Bill Belichick did because Bill Belichick was in the NFL in that coaching circles from the time he was 22 years old. 1975 was his first year in the NFL. He came to the Patriots in 2000. He had 25 years of networking at the coaching level, personnel level, and scouting level. Jerod has plenty of contacts, but there's going to be occasions where he's going to need every bit of assistance. And I think that was interesting when Jerod talked about breaking down walls and demolishing silos or whatever the wording was. Let's find that if we could, John. The silos in the walls.
We have a good foundation. And my thing here over the next few weeks is to rebuild some relationships, knock down silos, and collaborate. That's what I'm focused on.
In other words, all oars need to be in the water and pulling in the same direction. You know, Bill might have been going by outboard motor, just steering the thing with his. They got oars now.
And can I just point out something too, because I tweeted earlier today following the press conference, about an hour or so maybe after the press conference, about Robyn Glaser, who's been a senior executive for the Kraft Group for a long time, since 2007. She is now
I've heard more about Robyn Glaser in the past 4 days than I did in the previous 24 years.
Well, I think there are people who might be confused by my tweet, and maybe it's just because I'm reacting to Twitter in real time. We all know that's a dangerous thing. But her title now is Executive Vice President of Football Business and Senior Advisor to the head coach. She was previously Senior Vice President of Business Affairs and Chief Administrative and Compliance Officer for the team. Again, she's been around the team and been around the Kraft Group since 2007. Senior executive, I've been told today, quote unquote, super smart, and has had a variety of roles within the organization. She is helping facilitate contracts and hammering out language and contracts. She's not negotiating player contracts.
Yeah, she is an attorney. She was intimately involved in, I don't know if she is an attorney, I shouldn't say that, but she was very much a point person during Deflategate in dealing with the league.
And she was a point person during COVID, is my understanding. She was the team's compliance officer. So the binder of boxes that you needed checked as an NFL team to make sure that you were compliant with all the different COVID rules. She was the point person on that. So she's done a lot of different things. She's helping players with social justice initiatives. Has worked closely with Matthew Slater and Devin and Jason McCourty and Dietrich Wise. And she does a lot. Incredibly intelligent, obviously very well trusted by the Crafts, has a very good relationship with Jerod Mayo too. So to get to the, senior advisor to the head coach thing, I think she's going to help Jerod Mayo handle a lot of the new things that will now come across his desk that haven't come across his desk before, that he may not always have the most time for because he's
I saw Nancy Meyer today. She, for folks who follow the team, has been here as long as the stadium, as long as Foxboro Stadium. She's been an unbelievable influence on the team behind the scenes. And Bill Belichick cited Nancy Meyer when he was giving his goodbye last week. I saw her today. I didn't have a chance to ask her whether or not she was going to keep on. It didn't occur to me. Is Robyn going to be the Nancy Meyer for Jerod? Is Robyn more like a Beige Nigerian who was Bill Belichick's right-hand man and his brain in many ways? So it remains to be seen. The reason we're talking about Robyn Glaser, though, is it was broached in Seth Wickersham's article the other day that Robyn Glaser and Jonathan Kraft, a rumor spread through the organization that they would be involved in football operations. And it was literally phrased as a rumor spread that they would be involved in football operations. So just to circle back to the Kraft thing, got to take everything at face value. That's the thing. Until you find out otherwise, and believe us, we find shit out. Always find shit out. So if we find out otherwise, we'll let you know. But as of right now, Jonathan Kraft wasn't at the thing because it was a crisis at another company, and Robyn Glaser's not going to try and force Marvin Harrison on you people.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you mid-rant, and I thought you were done, and then you kept going. You gave me the old Josh Allen stutter step, and I thought you were giving yourself up. I stopped playing.
I do that to a lot of people with the pausing. Sorry.
Yeah, she's not going to be picking players, is my understanding. And maybe she will have some and this is maybe inside baseball now, Tom. I don't even know how many people listen to this podcast even know the name Beige Nigerian. They probably
do.
Did they know what he does? Beige had a different background. He was a PR background, right? And so that's not necessarily Robyn's background, but it wouldn't stun me if some of those responsibilities were similar in her new role now. But again, she's a couple days into it at most, so we'll see how that all shakes out.
Yeah. So just addressing the Robyn Glaser and the ownership role here, because that is, as we come out of this press conference today, and we know Jerod Mayo as well as we do, and I think Patriots fans who listen to this podcast, the 25,000 strong every week, God bless you, and a good number, appreciate you. They know the football team. They understand who Mayo is. They understand what he's about. They understand Robert Kraft and his passion for the team and the fact that he sat on metal benches and was a season ticket holder. They just want to know how they're going to score some friggin' points. They just want to know if the drafts are going to be better. And they just want to know that the buck will stop someplace on the desk of somebody who has broken down film in their nascent years around the league. So that to me is the upshot of today's press conference. I'm extremely happy for Jerod as a friend and colleague, and also as somebody who, we covered. Proud for him and happy for him. But that the upshot to me from Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast featuring Phil Perry is they got work ahead of themselves. And as Seneca said,
you got it.
Without charting a course, a man has no use. The wind to him is useless.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Seneca was a Stoic, correct?
Seneca Wallace. He played quarterback.
Oh.
It was Seneca the Stoic.
How many
We did it again. We did it again. Anything else?
No, had a good chat with Jerod Mayo. Boy, he did a lot of talking today. He probably did a half dozen one-on-one interviews before hours, and then he did another 4 after hours, I believe. So the man was gassed, but we had a good chat. And I think we're going to play that interview.
We are going to play that. Before we do, though, I did have a chance to talk to Rob Ninkovich, and his number one concern was quarterback, as is with everybody else. So no matter whether you played the game, talk about the game like we do, or paint your face and spend the money, God bless you, thank you for doing that, quarterback is the number one thing.
Even, Tom, I would say current players that I've heard from, they know they've got to get the quarterback position right. And they know where they sit in the draft. And they know who the top guys are, and that there are several for the Patriots to choose from. I'm going to be stunned if in a few months from now we're sitting here and the Patriots pass on an opportunity to take a quarterback at 3 overall. Stunned, shocked.
What if it's the third best quarterback?
I think the third best quarterback is still going to be good enough for them to really seriously consider it. And the only thing that might halt them, this was something that an offensive coordinator shared with me earlier this week. The one thing that might push any quarterback needy team away from one of these 3 guys, it's not going to be talent based. It's going to be character based, drive based, motivation based. It's going to be that intangible stuff that over the course of time, getting to know these guys and gathering the information that you gather from their schools and from people who know them, people who've been around them, that could move them off their spot. But the 3 guys that are there are talented enough to warrant that number 3 overall pick.
And that's the thing about the draft process. When you are already anointed as 1 or 2, as Caleb Williams and Drake May are, and people have already liked you for a while, now it comes to pimple finding time. And pimple finding time sometimes turns into a really ridiculous exercise because you're trying to find reasons to deflate. It's easier to be where Jaden Daniels was or Mac Jones was in some instances and come from someplace nobody expected you to. So you're the rising commodity instead of the one that people are trying to blow holes in. Because if you watch everybody play that position, Caleb Williams is the best at it. Flat out.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have a lot of arguments there, but there's other stuff to consider, especially at that position, Tom. We've seen a lot of talented guys get drafted up near the top of the draft. There are some critical traits that go beyond your arm and your legs and everything else physically that goes with that position.
There is crying in football, but there's no crying in your mother's arms in the stands in football while your teammates are still on the field.
Watch out.
You got to go there at some point. You can cry. You can cry if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. But if you go and cry and leave your friends behind, people are going to say your draft stock suffers. All right.
Okay, we got to go.
That's going to do it for that little safety dance.
We got to go.
Bye.
Bye. All right, we're here with Jerod Mayo, the 15th head coach in New England Patriots franchise history, the first black coach in Patriots franchise history. You said you better believe it. That means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
It absolutely means a lot. You know, just to see this opportunity come to fruition, it's been a lot of prayer, a lot of hard work, not only from me, but from my community and from my friends and things like that. It was just a surreal moment seeing my grandparents up front where they had to deal with the racial divide a lot more than we have to deal with it now. Now, I'm not saying, you know, racism doesn't exist. I'm saying it's different, right? It's different. Back then, you know, just thinking about my grandparents and where we are today, it came full circle, man.
I want to ask you about your grandfather specifically. Yeah. Walter Johnson, Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force.
In the Air Force, yep.
Helped raise you. You've been very open about that, you and your brothers. How has he maybe helped shape you as a coach?
Yeah.
You talked about some of the discipline he instilled in you during your press conference. Yeah. And I'm wondering how some of those principles carry over into your new job now as head coach here.
Yeah, you know, he always would, you know, talk about just working hard and things will happen. Until he always used to talk about action. It's not about, you know, saying you're going to do something. It's about action, and it's about getting the job done. And I've learned that from him time after time after time. And to see him on the front row today meant so much. And he got a little choked up as well. But as a Chief Master Sergeant, you would never see him get choked up. I think probably in the last two, whatever, like these two big moments, draft and this one, those are the only time I've seen him really get emotional. And it kind of put a lump in my throat as well. But he did a good job. Job well done.
You're a man, obviously, with a versatile background. Mm-hmm. Player, coach, business person, media member, briefly.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Did we win an Emmy?
Did we win an Emmy?
I don't know.
You might have.
Nah, I think I didn't get it.
I didn't get one for that.
Yeah, keep working hard. Yeah. Man. Keep working.
I'll get there eventually. Hard work works.
That's right.
I'll get there eventually.
That's right.
I did want to ask you, though, to give me an elevator pitch, Mr. Business Person.
Yeah.
Okay? Elevator pitch. The Patriots football team will be about what under Jerod Mayo?
It will be about winning, first and foremost. It will be about, it really doesn't matter what we do if we don't win games. So that has to be at the top. I would also say it's about developing and aspiring to be something that you thought you could never do. And there are a lot of resources around here to help people get to that next level. But at the end of the day, it's about winning.
To get there, what will you prioritize on the field? I'm curious because you mentioned something during your press conference where you said, game's a lot different now than it was when I was drafted in 2008. So from an on-the-field standpoint, what does Jerod Mayo believe in? There are fans that are watching this, listening to this right now, that want to know what you're about. What's your football philosophy?
Yeah. You know, Coach used to always talk about smart, tough, and dependable, and those have worked. And we'll continue to show up with our team. I would say we want to have a smart team. We want to have a team that really enjoys playing for one another and takes accountability in everything that happens, both in the building and outside the building. I would also say, you know, we have good leaders on this team, and we've had good leaders on this team, and I encourage any former player to come back in the building. I think it's important. So when you talk about player development and, you know, guys that have gone through some of those ups and downs, it's important to get them back in the building.
We saw Devin McCourty here today. We saw Rob Ninkovich here today.
Yep.
Are we going to see these guys on the Patriots coaching staff at some point?
Well,
here
I would say Devin is doing a great job in media, and Rob has his podcast, so they won't be coaching. I don't think they can handle the hours.
How about you? Obviously, major voice on the defensive side of the ball. I'm curious, though, now, as head coach, will you be calling plays next year for the Patriots?
I mean, we're still evaluating the coaching staff. What I will say is, look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything about offense. You have to have, like, experts or, you know, professionals in that world. It's one thing to have X's and O's on a piece of paper. It's another thing to, like, teach a guy how to do it. And I'm going to lean on some people. I'm going to lean on some coaches that I have a lot of respect for as well to kind of help guide me through this process.
Who would you lean on when it comes to the offensive coordinator hire that we all are anticipating potentially could happen? Because that part, the offensive side of the ball, obviously struggled last year. And I think what would be a valid question of you would be, well, your defensive coach, defensive player, what makes you the right guy to find the guy who's going to shape this offense moving forward?
That's a good question. And once again, I'll go back to collaboration. Ownership, 1,000%. They have a lot of resources and context across the league to help us with this. But we'll see how it shakes out. But that's the first person. Any hire, offense, defense, special teams, they can vet those guys. And look, I'm not going to bat 1,000 in year one. I'm sure someone will change in year two. But at the same time, like, I have to go with my gut. And Thunder talked about his gut a lot. There is a book, Don't Trust Your Gut, though. I will say that. But his has never been wrong. And so hopefully I'm the last one of these that he has to do.
He has a pretty good track record when it comes to hiring head coaches. He's hired 2 Hall of Famers thus far. Robert Kraft mentioned he wants to evaluate the people that he has in-house when it comes to personnel. How much time might that take? Because when it comes to personnel, we know the draft, free agency, sometimes you don't know whether a decision was a good decision or a bad decision until you're 3-4 years down the road to see how that player developed in your system. So I'm curious how you can evaluate in the short term, or are the people that are here going to be people that you lean on for 3 or 4 years?
I would say it's a combination. Look, we can definitely evaluate those guys, but it's all about timing, just what you talked about, like the draft's coming up, free agency's coming up. So, it's all about timing, getting the right people in there. And look, as we go through the evaluation process with ownership, with key players, that's when we can kind of like work on that. It's not really a priority for us, you know what I mean, this year.
Last question I want to ask you. You have been open in the past talking about imposter syndrome. It's something you felt as though you've experienced since you're in high school.
That's right.
And, it's a pretty widely known experience for a lot of different people when they look at themselves and they say, do I really belong here? Do I have what it takes to be doing what I'm doing right now? How long until I'm found out as an imposter, quote unquote? And I think a lot of people might view that as a negative feeling. How do you turn that into a positive potentially in this new role that you're in to help get you to where you want to be as a head coach?
That's a great question. I don't think imposter syndrome is a negative thing. I think it drives me. It drives me. I'll give the example. When I got to Tennessee, I was a 4-star linebacker, and we had all these good players around, and I would ask myself, am I supposed to be here? These guys might be too good. But I really just used that to do all the extra stuff in the film room, in the weight room, and things like that. Same thing when I came here. Like when I was drafted here 10th overall, you would think a 10th overall pick wouldn't have that feeling. And everyone has that feeling in certain ways, but everyone wants to act tough. Oh, I don't have it. Oh, I got it. I can handle it. But once again, if you feel that way, like, oh, I can handle it, maybe you're not stretching yourself far enough. Because as you start to stretch further and further away from comfort, that's when the imposter syndrome starts to come up. And how you handle that is important. Some people paralyzed by it. For me, it's a motivator. It's a motivator, like, I got to get it done.
Jerod Mayo, congratulations.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks so much for spending some time with us here.
Thank you.